George Kittle gave us good news about the state of his Achilles rehab. Weird news about Brandon Aiyuk, though. We'll get to that. Plus, a deadline looms for Trent Williams and a very special announcement towards the end of the show. All coming up on today's Gold Standard Podcast. What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard Podcast, part of the Pro Football Insiders. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. That man is Levin Black. Levin, March 18th. We're post week one of free agency. We're post St. Patrick's Day. We're just getting into draft countdown now.
Full disclosure, full stop. No, we're into March Madness. This is one of the few periods of the year that football takes a backseat.
Not for me. Never, baby. In fact, speaking of brackets, we're going to have an announcement towards the end of the show that people are going to want to stay tuned for.
What bracket is Quinnipiac in?
Well, Quinnipiac is not a school. So Quinnipiac is a school that I went to. I assume they're in the hockey tournament. They lost their conference tournament in hockey. I don't know if they made the NCAA tournament or not. They did win the national championship in hockey like 2 or 3 years ago, though. So, let's not bang on my Bobcats. Thank you very much. All right.
Bobcats, super original.
I didn't make the name. What do you want? They were the Braves the year before I got there, and then they changed it to the Bobcats.
Oh, so they had time to decide. We're like, let's go with the most vanilla possible.
We are a team in Connecticut. What do you want? Let's get right to it on today's show. We're going to talk about George Kittle's interview on Bussin' with the Boys. Weird things happening with Brandon Aiyuk. When are they not? Trent Williams looming contract deadline and much more. If you didn't hear George on Bussin' with the Boys, here is what he said about his rehab and where he is, and more importantly, where he can be soon.
I'm on and off of crutches. I got out of a boot like 2 weeks ago, which was thrilling because being in a boot is horrible. I'm in these awesome dad shoes with heel lifts in, and I'm like, I can function around my house without crutches. So I just can't, be on my feet all day, but it's coming along. The rehab's going great. My trajectory is fantastic. I think I get off of crutches in like a week or two. It was actually cool. My surgeon Elatrosh flew to see me in Nashville. He was at my barn for 45 minutes, said I was exactly where he wanted me to be. And so we're trending in the right direction.
Obviously, that's all good news. I would like to one day be able to afford the level of healthcare where the surgeon flies to see you. That sounds pretty great, but obviously that's good news with Kittle.
Have we ever gotten like the full story of what made him settle on Nashville for where he is every offseason, and I'm assuming we'll end up retiring to?
I don't know off the top of my head.
He's not from that area, so it's kind of like where did that come from?
I don't know. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but yeah, that's where he is. He's got the barn. He's got the whole setup there. I guess he lives close to Brock.
Okay.
Right.
It's where did that come from? Because this isn't the only team that has athletes living in Nashville in the offseason, but how did that develop? Completely off topic, I know, but
yeah,
I thought the most interesting part of the Kittle interview was how he got injured.
Okay, so we can talk about that. If you didn't listen to the interview or you didn't listen to 49ers in 5 this morning, I will just tell you, when he was hip drop tackled against the Colts, tore 2 ligaments in his ankle, continued playing, obviously, re-injured it, and he thinks that led to him overcompensating on the opposite leg.
Well, he said he was running with – he learned to run with all his weight on one leg to compensate for that. He changed the way in which he ran.
He wasn't feeling any Achilles pain before that. I mean, so it was just him speculating, but that's what he said he thinks caused the injury. A lot of people took that as a reason to bang on the 49ers training staff. I don't, Levin, first of all. Dudes play injured all the time in the NFL. It's not like George Kittle's the first guy to play hurt.
Torn ligaments, though.
Guys have played with broken arms. Terrell Owens played with an
ankle.
That's
a broken arm. You don't have to change the way in which you move from a broken arm.
Terrell Owens played with an ankle that was so bad he had to sign a waiver saying he wouldn't sue.
For a single game.
Yeah, look, guys, Jack Youngblood played a Super Bowl with a broken leg. Guys play hurt all the time. If you think there was a chance that George Kittle was missing a playoff game against the Eagles for an ankle injury, no, there's no
Well,
way.
no, I'm not saying he should have sat out, but it is interesting that the reason he admitted that he had already had some ankle or Achilles issues, and then
In
like not
2021.
right then, right, he had basically an Achilles that was weakened at some point, and then doing this caused the full rupture. I just think that's interesting. I'm not saying anything's right or wrong about it. I think it's interesting that he was that hurt. He tore ligaments and he was out there playing, and you couldn't even really tell. Like when we said like he doesn't look quite right, but it wasn't like his run was so weird. You're like, dude, that guy is limping out there. What the heck is he playing for? No, like he was running mostly normal. You just could kind of tell like something's not quite right, but it wasn't like a limp. You know, you've seen people out there where they're trying to drag a leg, and you can tell like, what is this guy doing on the field?
Now, he did miss the next game after the Colts game, and then he came back against Seattle, 5 catches, 29 yards against Seattle. Like, it was a chance for the number 1 seed. Of course, George Kittle came back. Look, I have banged on the 49ers training staff plenty, and I criticize them when I think that they deserve it. To me, in this case, I don't think they deserve it. If he didn't tear his Achilles, nobody would have been like, why did you let him play on the ankle? I just think
I'm not criticizing. That's a very interesting fact to it. You know, that's one of those things that you go, you know, when somebody asks, what was George Kittle like, which is going to come all too soon, that people won't remember him. A decade from now, there's going to be like a segment of fans that aren't that are around that weren't there for Kittle. And you'll have to say, well, this guy was so tough. He played through torn ligaments in his ankle and it caused an Achilles rupture. And he came back from that.
He's fantastic. There's nothing not to like about George Kittle, but at least that news was good. He also talked about Brandon Aiyuk in that situation, and there wasn't anything super interesting there, although I did think it was hilarious that he kind of blew up the 49ers spot a little bit because he said Brandon Aiyuk wasn't coming to meetings. If you wanted to see Brandon Aiyuk, the only place you could see him was the weight room. He wasn't going to the training room or anything. And so he said he went to the weight room to talk to Brandon Aiyuk and offer his support and all that stuff. But it is hilarious, Levin, because it directly contradicts what the 49ers were trying to sell us. If you remember, in June, the 49ers coaches, Leonard Hankerson, the wide receiver coach, is talking about, Brandon Aiyuk he's a coach in the meeting rooms. Oh, no, where did it go? I just had it. He's been in meetings and catching up on the mental part. As far as seeing it on film, Hankerson said, he's also been doing a great job in meetings, having an extra set of eyes for myself. I ask him questions and have him coach up the guys. The lie detector said that was a lie.
Well, I don't necessarily believe that. I think both of what they said can be true because you're picking June. Maybe he was there in the offseason, and then when he came for training camp, maybe he knew this isn't going to heal in time. It's best for me to not try to come back early. Best case scenario, I'm back very late in the season. I would rather just sit out and force my way out. And so he didn't show up for things after the offseason when he thought there was a chance he would be back mid-season. Once it became apparent to him that that wasn't going to happen, he was like, peace out. I know you don't want me here anyways. You know, both those can be true. He could have been there for the offseason program and then stopped showing up.
Well, they voided his money in July. So part of the reason they voided the money is because he wasn't going to meetings, which I assume those would have been in June. Obviously, like you can't just, if he misses one meeting, you can't void his money. So to me, it seems like he was not going to meetings. And then finally in July, they were like, all right, we've had enough of this. We're voiding your money. I just think they were trying to trade him and they were trying to pump up his value in any way possible. Yeah. I'm not banging. Teams lie all the time. Sometimes teams have to lie. It's not like, oh, the 49ers lied, gasp, my virgin ears. No, like teams lie all the time. I get it. I just think this is a case where they were trying to pump up his trade value and they couldn't get rid of him. And it's just funny.
I do think that the team did not expect to have the season that they had. I mean, they expected this to be a kind of a struggle season. And I do wonder if the Niners were thinking, get this guy healthy, get him on the field for a game or two, trade him at the deadline.
I'm sure they would have
And
loved that.
maybe he caught wind of that and he was like, F you, I'm just not going to show up. I do think this is all just theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think part of what happened is like he withdrew himself. And what happens to most people is when you withdraw, it's like it's a cascading effect. It snowballs. The more you withdraw, the more you feel you want to withdraw more. And I feel like when he stopped showing up to the team, taking that step back, being removed from being around the team atmosphere, he became isolated and he's kind of lost sight of reality right now.
Just the fact that he didn't fight the 49ers taking his money is just...
Well, the fact that TJ Houshmandzadeh is essentially out, I mean, his biggest defender is out there saying, I have no effing clue what that guy's doing right now. But I know he still has something left. I know he's still good, but like he literally said, I have not talked to him in a while. Well, that's his biggest
that's his personal
cheerleader.
Coach.
Right. It's his personal coach and his biggest cheerleader. To me, if TJ Houshmandzadeh hasn't talked to him in a while, I wonder if the guy's even training,
I have no idea. I mean, how are we supposed to? I guess we got to
I'm not sure anybody has any idea. Like, literally anybody. I'm not sure his agent knows. The team doesn't know because Aiyuk's not going to tell them anything. So, like, his own team doesn't even know if he's, like, staying in shape. Maybe Aiyuk's not even close to in shape right now. Like, it just seems like he withdrew, and once he withdrew, it was like it just snowballed, and he became more and more withdrawn and losing sight of normal.
Gabe Garoni, YouTube channel member for 30 months. Thank you so much, Gabe. I appreciate that support. Says therapy talk with the wet blanket, #offseason. Look, we admitted this is all speculation. We're just trying to piece together what happened and what could be happening now. It is amazing that the 49ers have found these guys that ghost them in the offseason. First, it was Jimmy Garoppolo. Now it's Brandon Aiyuk, I guess, ghosts them in season and offseason. I did a video on this earlier today, and it's just everybody lost in this situation. The 49ers were supposed to have Brandon Aiyuk and Ricky Pearsall, two guys that could eat man coverage for lunch, can work against zone, run after the catch, get open. And that was a good plan by the 49ers. And the Niners bungled the relationship with him, and he lost $30 million that he'll never get back. No matter what he does, no matter how long he plays, he will never get that money that he was supposed to earn back. Everybody lost in this situation, and it's a shame.
Including his agent.
Right. That nobody said before they negotiated that contract. Clearly, you don't want to be in business with each other. His agent couldn't get it through his head, and nobody could get it through Kyle Shanahan's head. Like, hey, this clearly, if there's this much reservation now, this is not going to last going forward. Nobody drilled that message through, and so everybody lost.
Yeah, including the Steelers, because they ended up with DK Metcalf.
Right. And yeah, the Niners had a decent offer on the table, or the Steelers had a decent offer on the table from everything that we've kind of heard through some rumblings, but not to be.
Yeah, we're trying to make sense of nonsense. Like, it could be something that none of us know that makes no sense. Like, could be the Niners didn't even do him wrong, and he just lost it. The rehab, you've heard plenty of players talk about how hard the rehab is, and then you start to feel isolated because you can't be, there at practice and things. It could be the Niners flat told him, even if you get healthy, we're not going to have you play with us. If you get healthy, we're going to trade you, and that's what caused this. Like, there's so many different possibilities, and it might be something that makes absolutely no sense to anybody. And the truth is, we'll probably never know. Like, I seriously question whether he's ever going to play again. If I was a team, I'm not signing him for anything.
Well, the Commanders may be the ultimate winners out of this because they may be able to sign him for super cheap. And if he's anything close to what he was, that's going to be a huge bargain for them. That's the only way somebody can win in this scenario.
I mean, name me a player that lost a bigger bag.
I mean, I know Le'Veon Bell lost out on some money when he sat
He
out.
lost out on a good bit of
Not
money,
30
but
million though.
right. I mean, he did end up getting paid a good bit. He kind of more lost out and he lost his career because he went from being arguably the best running back in the league to never being the same.
B.A. Jones Jr. says 49ers deserve almost as much blame as B.A. does after he tore his ACL. All you hear is Niners regret signing him right after the season. You heard about regret after, like, even before that, like before the injury that season when he wasn't off to as good a start as he's had, you were hearing rumblings of it. 49ers are not blameless at all. Both sides are at fault in this. Everybody screwed it up. They all did. And that's the most annoying part of all this. We went from Kyle Shanahan drafting him in 2020, like, pumping his fist. Remember that? Because that was the draft. Everybody was on the Zoom and he was all super excited. And then, bam, he was in the doghouse. And then, which I think is part of it too. I think BA never really got over that. I feel like he never really felt.
He was never like Debo was the it guy.
He was never embraced in a way that others were, like you said. And I think he always felt it. And then I think it just kept snowballing and snowballing. And then when that article came out in November, where it was like the Niners are done with Brandon Aiyuk, he was like, oh, yeah, well, guess what? Now I'm done with you. Peace out. I'm not even showing up to the weight room anymore. I'm speeding by Levi's. Good night.
I mean, it's weird. It's going to come to an end soon. And to me, it's like, I get what the Niners are doing, but good Lord, read the room. If the guy was a free agent, he probably wouldn't have interest except for maybe one team, and they would make him do a workout before they would sign him.
That would be interesting. I mean, if he were to get traded, which I think is highly unlikely, but if he were, he would have to pass a physical, obviously, as we saw with Max Crosby. Be a fascinating thing to see. Ultimately, one way or another, that's going to end. And I hope he plays again. He's a good player. He's a very good player.
Yeah, I don't have ill will towards him, put it that way. Like, I'm disappointed in him. I think he's been pretty dumb in this scenario. But in the end, like, if he's not happy, he doesn't need to be here. So I don't necessarily blame him, but he could have handled this a lot better so that he would have a team willing to trade for him.
He could have handled this a lot better as the overriding tagline of this whole scenario, and not just from the Aiyuk side, from the Niners side as well. Another thing that George Kittle said I thought was interesting was they were talking to him about like everything that he does to keep his body in shape. And, he was saying, I've got this machine and that machine, and I've got the whole barn in Tennessee, and I'm doing all this stuff. And then they were like, what does Trent Williams do to stay in shape? And George's response was sleep. And he said when he works out hard. But it just illustrated to me how much of a freaking unicorn Trent Williams is. Like, the man is so physically talented and physically gifted. Number one, he said he didn't start really taking care of himself with his diet until like a couple years ago. Number two, he didn't watch film in college because he was so good and so much better than everybody else. It didn't matter. He was like, I don't care what moves you have. I'm blocking you, and there's nothing you can do about it. That man is just, there are physical freaks out there that are just unicorns, and he is the definition of a unicorn.
I don't think he's quite at this level, but he's the closest to Larry Allen the league has seen. Larry Allen was a guy who didn't take care of himself, but he was the biggest freak I think the league has ever seen. He should definitely be in that conversation, and I think he does not get to be in that conversation as much as he should. Like, people think Calvin Johnson was a freak. No. Larry Allen was bigger than Trent Williams, if I'm not mistaken, faster than Trent Williams, and is the strongest player to ever play in the NFL.
If you Google it, you can see Larry Allen run down a linebacker from behind on an interception. And the announcers,
a fast linebacker, like one of the fastest linebackers in the league.
And the announcers are dumb. They don't even talk about the interception. They're like, look at Larry Allen, this man.
You see him passing like DBs and stuff, like avoiding their blocks as he's running. Yeah.
He was really good with the 49ers too. All pro at guard and tackle. The man was a freak. But Trent Williams, he's due a bonus. Oh, $10 bonus, a $10 million bonus. Let me write.
Me too.
Let me throw that 10.
I'm renegotiating my contract, Rob.
Yeah.
Before that $10 bonus.
$10 million bonus on Friday. Niners have been trying to work it out with him. I continue to maintain that they're going to. It might take a while. It might even be that Trent holds out right up until the season starts, but the Niners know they don't have any recourse. He's really damn good. He'll eventually get his money because the Niners always cave. It's what they do. And I'm not worried about the situation, but this deadline on Friday could spur a little bit of action.
Speaking of things that don't make sense to me, this side of it, the Trent Williams side of it, doesn't make sense to me. You can go to the side, which I think is more of a fan side, but some players have done it. He has made, I think, $210 million in his career. Like, hey, how about take a team discount? You're trying to win a Super Bowl before you retire, right? Like, not go for $20 million, but how about you not hold out every freaking year? You know what I mean? Like, so I kind of get that side, but even if you don't want to go to that, which I think is more of kind of like a fan perspective of, hey, dude, you've made enough. Be quiet. He's going to be compensated as well as anybody at his position this season. This is not a situation of he has a massive cap hit, but in terms of actual cash he's due, he's not getting it. He's due to get paid almost $32 million of cash this season. What the hell are you complaining about? This should be 100% be the Niners desperate to get him into a new contract to save that cap space and still only pay him, the $32 million. That's a very real situation for the Niners that they can give him. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm struggling right now, but they can give him, $32 million this year in cash. So he doesn't lose any cash this year and get him re-upped and save a ton of money in cap space. It's Trent Williams that I just don't understand. What are you complaining about? You're well compensated even if you don't get a new contract. Why are you complaining?
Trent Williams is a businessman, and I'm sure he's saying, look, if you want something from me, I want something from you. And what I want, I think, is he wants his money for next year guaranteed. He doesn't have that right now. And I think the Niners are like, dude, you're 38 years old. We don't know that we want to guarantee your money for next year. And he's like, well, then
let him play it out then. That's what I don't understand. Like, okay, tell him, all right, cool. We'll let you play out this contract and we'll revisit it after the offseason.
Well,
after the season.
The Niners like to roll over as much cap room as possible. So I think their thinking is like, hey, if we can lower the cap number this year, we can roll that over. We'll be good. But Trent is like, I'm not doing something for nothing. Now, at least the good news for the 49ers is they could just leave the contract as it is. They don't have to do it. We'll see ultimately how it turns out. But, deadlines spur action, as the saying goes. And there is a deadline, so to speak, on Friday. So we could get some movement there. I actually texted you today like, hey, this might happen just because of that deadline. I was thinking we might get news. No news as of yet, but we will keep our ear to the ground, I should say, about Trent Williams. The other thing I texted you about today, Levin, was the Dre Greenlaw contract. We got a little more details on it. I think I could be wrong, but I think Aaron Wilson had the details first. I always want to give credit to people. I think it was Aaron Wilson who tweeted out, Dre Greenlaw, 1-year deal, $6 million fully guaranteed, $2.5 million signing bonus, $2.6 million salary, voidable years 2027 to 2030. Any issues with the Greenlaw contract?
No, I mean, so to break it down, the $2.5 million signing bonus is getting spread out over 5 years. This year and 4 void years. So it's $500,000 cap this year. The salary makes it $3.1 million cap this year, and he must have $900,000 in some kind of roster bonus, total game roster bonuses would be my guess. So that he's going to end up having at the end of the season a $4 million cap hit this year, with $2 million hitting next year in the void year dead cap when he's not on the roster anymore. That's what this contract is. $4 million to take a roll on the dice of a potential upside is second team all pro level linebacker. Like, I don't care if it was somebody that came from the team or not. I would take that chance.
The details seems like a fine contract to me. Great, good job all around. I like the offseason that the 49ers have had. Jay, on Tuesday, we talked about whether this is the best free agency period of the Shanahan era, and there's a good argument to be made that it is. But
I listened to that part of it, and I got to say, like, I don't know how you have that conversation yet, because you're judging all previous classes in hindsight, and this one has so few signings. There's a very real possibility. I like the offseason, but there's a very real possibility Mike Evans plays 5 games, Kirk is toasted and doesn't even make the roster, and you're sitting there going, well, that year sucked, and it ends up being one of the worst. Like, yes, it could end up being the best, but there's also a realistic outlook to look and say, well, it could also be the worst.
It could. If you're a wet blanket, you could think that on March 18th. I'm, trying to think positive.
I'm just saying, like, they have made some good signings, but they are risky signings of older players, and there's so few of them. It doesn't take much. There's not that many rolls of the dice that they've taken, right? There's essentially 3, 4 if you want to count the trade. Like, this could end up being a really bad offseason in hindsight, which is how you judge all the other ones. So, yes, you can. You guys talking about how this could be the best. That's true, but then you also have to talk about how this could also be the worst. It's a very interesting swing kind of year.
The potential is there for sure. Here's the part that's sort of, I think is worth discussing. Let's just look on the bright side for now, which I know is difficult for you to do, but brace yourself here. Let's say Evans plays and plays well. Let's say he has, 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns. Great. Let's say Osa Odigizua is, as disruptive as we hope he is. Let's say Christian Kirk completely replaces Juwan. All like best case scenario for the 49ers. Now, I'm not saying Super Bowl. I'm just saying in terms of individual production. Other than Odigizua, this is all 1-year stuff. Kirk's a 1-year deal. Mike Evans is a 1-year deal. So I know we're skipping ahead here, but we're looking at a 2027 offseason where it's like, holy hell, we got a lot of needs because they're going to have needs from free agents leaving, plus all the needs from all these 1-year contracts that are expiring. It is a very short-term fix for the 49ers right now.
I mean, Mike Evans has a 3-year deal, although if he has an injury-prone year, it might turn into a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Because that's how it's kind of worked out in terms of structure. But it is a year. I don't know if this is going to be the way that they go for the next few years, where they're kind of doing these. They're making bets, and they're making 1-year bets so that if this is the year where it becomes apparent Trent is gone, Kittle's not the same anymore, Warner's not the same anymore, time to hit reset, they're capable of making that swap really quickly. That's the thing that I wonder in the back of my mind is, are they doing these kind of shorter term deals that they can get out of because it's less risk? Or are they doing it because it allows them to flip into trying to rebuild that much faster?
It makes sense, right? Maybe that's something that the 49ers should be doing. They are still held up largely by the draft successes of a few years ago and Christian McCaffrey. I have up on the screen now, if you're an audio listener, what it would cost to get out of the contracts of Kittle, McCaffrey, Warner, Bosa. Trent is sort of an outlier because they're going to redo something with his deal, so that could change drastically based on what they do. But they could reasonably, there is not, other than Bosa, they could get out of any of the deals. Kittle, McCaffrey, Warner, they could get out of it, especially if they do a post-June 1 cut. I mean, hell, the Dolphins this year are going to play with like $196 million of dead cap money. The Niners played with $100 million of dead cap last year. So if they wanted to do it, they could do it. Now, maybe they don't do all of them in one off season, That would be a hell of a Band-Aid to rip off.
No, I think the big one is Bosa. If he doesn't come back and have a double-digit sack season, if they don't get rid of him, they're in their feels at that point. Like, the guy's been declining ever since he got that contract. He's coming off a major injury. If he comes back and he is not the dominant guy, double-digit sack guy, you can't afford to keep a guy with the cap hits that he has coming in. I mean, his cap hits are hitting quarterback levels. So you got to move on at that point and take the dead cap hit. He's the one that I look at. Christian McCaffrey, he may retire. Trent Williams, he may retire. Kittle and Warner, I feel like they've kind of earned the right, and they're also, I don't think they're going to decline so far that they can't finish out their contracts.
Well, Kittle with the Achilles, we don't know, but I still think a declined George Kittle is still just like a regular starting NFL tight end. So I think
right. So like, look at what Kelsey signed for a 1-year deal this year. Kittle's not far off from that, and Kelsey sucks now. He's like a very he's a very average tight end is the best way to put it. He's above average, not good anymore, but above average receiving tight end and a below average blocking tight end. That's where he's at. He's very average these days, and he's still getting, what was it, 14 million or something like that on the 1-year deal. So it's like Kittle signed for, what was it, 18 million, I think was his average, something around there. So like you can finish out his contract, even if he ends up coming back and he's just, he's a guy that's going to get you 500 receiving yards as a tight end.
Kittle has a cap number this year of 14.1. Next year, it is 16 million. The year after that, it is 17 million. And then in 2029, it balloons all the way up to 34.4. But I'm sure it'll never actually get to that point. And even then, he might retire before then anyway. Who knows? He would be 36 years old at that point. Kittle's contract is utterly reasonable. The contract is not going to be the reason they get rid of him.
Right. And same with Fred Warner. Like, it's two positions that they don't have these $25+ million a year contracts to where when you get to the end of them and they're backloaded, you're looking at 30, 35, even $40 million cap hits. They're not there. They're affordable even when you're overpaying for them because it's a position that's just not paid well.
And also, too, like a $30 million cap hit 4 years from now is going to look so different because the cap is going to go way up. The NFL is negotiating with CBS right now on a contract that could pay $3 to $4 billion every year. That's just one deal. So,
well, I mean, CBS cannot afford to lose the NFL because right now, assuming the government allows it, they're going to be getting close to monopoly level. I mean, they're going to own Paramount is CBS's parent company. That's the main movie studio. They're buying Time Warner. That's the other main movie studio. So they're going to own like all of the media rights. Paramount is already number one in terms of TV shows, and they're buying one of the biggest ones and gaining HBO with it. So they're going to be massive. They can't afford to lose the NFL. You know what I mean? That's their, we can dominate live too, not just the TV and movie.
And that's just one contract. That doesn't include the Thursday night deal that they have with Amazon, the deal that they have with Fox, the deal that they have with Netflix now to have a couple of games. Now they're talking about adding a Thanksgiving Wednesday game.
Oh, I was going to say, well, look at Netflix. They were going to buy Time Warner, and Paramount swooped in and outbid them. But in order to break that deal, Netflix is getting a $2 billion cash for doing nothing. And they were about to do, I forget what they were going to buy it for, but they were about to pony up a ton of money to buy Time Warner. Well, now they have all this money that they were allocating for that to spend on something else. Like, I would not be surprised if we see Netflix trying to get Sunday rights.
It'd be fascinating if it happens. But the point is, the NFL is about to make a hell of a lot more money, which means the salary cap is going to go way, way up. So when we see some of these numbers and we clutch our pearls, just know we might be living in a very, very different world by the time we get to that point. So that's something to keep in mind as well. All right, Levin, let's get to the big announcement this year. We do the bracket every year. We've done it for multiple years now. I don't know if anybody remembers, last year we had a little bit of controversy where there were some questions about the voting and all of that. And as Levin and I were discussing things and what we were going to do this year, we just got to a point, and mostly it was me, where I was like, look, we all know this thing is going to come down to like Lombardi, Brad, Kroc, like the same people every year. And so is there something else we could do? Something different, something more creative, something more engaging for people than what we've done year after year? We don't have to do the same thing year after year. We can do whatever the hell we want. So
we're talking about March Media Madness.
Right. I decided to change it up a little bit this year. And instead of just picking your favorite 49ers personality that covers it, we're going to do a different bracket this year. Because this is going to be year 10 of Shanahan, I thought, let's look back and let's try and pick our favorite game of the Kyle Shanahan era. And favorite, not biggest, not most important, just your favorite game of the Kyle Shanahan era. So I have the bracket here. I will throw it up on the screen. There you go. We will have the voting with the way we've done the voting the past couple of years. So don't worry, you'll be able to go and vote on it. But when you look back at the Shanahan era, I think there's some very interesting games. And I will just run through quickly what I put up there. The game against the Saints in 2019, right? With the Emmanuel Sanders touchdown pass and all of that. Jimmy Garoppolo against the Bears in 2021, where he is just about benched for Trey Lance, and then the Niners come back and win, and that starts their run in that comeback in that season. The NFC Championship game against the Packers in 2019 with Raheem Mostert running for 1 billion yards. The playoff game against the Eagles this year, that ranked up there for me. The playoff or the game in 2023, the regular season game when the Niners went into Philly and stomped them. The playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys in 2022. The snow game against the Packers in the playoffs in 2021, where Robbie Gould kicked it and Jimmy Garoppolo offered the famous F the Packers on the field after the game. Brock Purdy's first start against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. The NFC Championship game against the Lions. Jimmy Garoppolo's first start in 2017. And don't let what happened with Jimmy cloud your judgment. That was a big one for us. The Week 18 game against the Rams in 2021, where the Niners came back down 17-0 on the road to win and make the playoffs. Mac Jones against the Rams this past season, where there were no other starters basically except Christian McCaffrey. The game in 2019 in Week 18 against the Seahawks that determined the number 1 seed. Brock Purdy against the Packers in 2023 in the playoffs, where Greenlaw has the interception at the end. The game against the Cowboys at Levi's in 2023, where the Niners just smoked them and announced to the world in front of a national audience that we're the best damn team and we're going to the Super Bowl. And the 2021 game against the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs. Those are all the games. That is the bracket, Levin. First of all, what do you think of the idea? And do you think the game, did I leave any games off that you would have included?
Nothing immediately jumps to mind for leaving off. I mean, I like the idea. I think it was time to change the Media Madness for reasons like you said. We had the same results. And then, last year, we had somebody was getting, 5 times the votes of anybody else that had ever gotten them, and isn't somebody that you'd probably recognize the name of for most 49er fans. So it was kind of, okay, people are starting to game this system. Let's change it up. In terms of opinion here, I find it's really hard because I go back and forth. What game did I just like revel in the most? Did I enjoy the most? That's probably the Philly game in 23.
Right.
Because it was that, go F yourselves. Like, and it was just so much fun, and it destroyed them. So, like, the aftertaste of that game lasted months because they fell apart after that game. But then, like, part of my brain goes, yeah, but that game didn't have that big of a true, like, meaning. Like, to me, the Rams week 18, the Greenlaw, saving the game, that's kind of like, maybe that one. But then I also remember how I felt. I don't think it was his first start, though, so I will say that one's maybe a little off. But when Jimmy G 49ers beat Jacksonville, the year that Jacksonville had that dump, that was when everybody went, hold on here, we have our franchise quarterback, which that didn't exactly work out. But that was the moment where it was like, hey, it's year one. We sucked all year, but look at us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like, it's weird. Like, there's the coming out of the holy hell, what did I just go through the last 5 years? Jimmy G emergence that gave us hope for the first time in a very long time. There's the games with the big stakes, and then there was the game that was just so sweet to say F you to Philly.
Yeah, I think that you have to go back and put yourself in the shoes that you were in at the time. That's why I put some of the Jimmy Garoppolo games on there, because it was a huge deal. Remember, before Jimmy's first start, he comes in against, I think it was against the Seahawks at the end of the game because Beathard was hurt, and he throws the touchdown pass on the last play of the game. And you're like, yes, we got our guy. There was all this hype when he got traded to the Niners. They had the big press conference and the red carpet, but then he wasn't playing, right? Kyle didn't throw him into the fire right away. So we're just waiting, and we're watching the 49ers offense with these dud quarterbacks. And we're like, can we finally put this guy in? He got forced to put him in, and he immediately throws a touchdown pass. And then the next week he starts and he wins. And we're like, oh my God, like, you really felt like the train was going on the tracks there. And that's why it's not best game, it's favorite game.
Yeah. And I did mess up. It's not Rams week 18, it's Seahawks 1 seed 19.
Yes.
I'm talking about with the Greenlaw stop. Like, it's tough. I mean, part of me also always has a special place for beating the Packers in the playoffs, because my first years of truly watching the Niners was the 3 years in a row that they played the Packers, and the Packers beat them twice in a row. And I'm going to say it, and you're going to have to do some extra work. I fucking hated Brett Favre, and I still fucking hate him. And now I have legitimate reasons for that hate. But back then, I didn't really.
Yeah, I agree. I was convinced, because they had lost to the Cowboys twice in a row and then beat them the third time, that there was no way they were going to lose to the Packers 3 times in a row. And then they did. And I was like, wait, that can happen? And it was miserable. So I hated Brett Favre. I agree with you there 100%. The Seahawks game in 19 felt different too, because it was like, I really didn't believe that the Niners could be good unless they could beat Seattle in Seattle. Because even when the Niners were really good with Harbaugh, they always got their clock cleaned in Seattle. So to go there and to not only win the game, but for it to look like Russell Wilson was going to pull a rabbit out of his hat again at the end, again, and break our hearts. And they get down to the inch line, and Dre Greenlaw goes, whap, and stonewalls the guy. And the Niners not only win the game and sort of break that hold that the Seattle had over them, but they also get the number 1 seed in the playoffs. They get the bye week, which the team desperately needed at that point. That was a huge game. It was like, oh my God, we might have something here with this team.
Yeah. In that game, it might end up getting my vote just because the deja vu aspect of it. It connects me to the other similar era, being the Bowman game, when he made the stop at the goal line with that fumble that just fell into his hands, at the same time destroying his career. Like, it connects you to another era in recent history that was a lot of fun. And so it's got like a weird feeling to it, because it's not just about 2019. The way it happened, the second linebacker, the guy that's in the shadow of the guy that's considered the best in the league, makes this crazy play right on the goal line to save the day when you thought, mother effer, Seattle's going to do it to us again.
Brett Davis, YouTube channel member, says, I love the 2019 NFC Championship game, just running it down the Packers' throat, and there was nothing Aaron Rodgers can do about it. That was one of the most satisfying wins for sure. Because I remember watching the game, and at one point, if you go back and watch the call, they hand off to Mostert. He runs for like 12 yards, and Joe Buck just says, they cannot stop the run. And you're like, yeah, like this is just, it got to a point where it was utterly demoralizing. It was like playing against your little brother, and he could not figure out what you were doing. He could not stop you, and you were just spamming plays over and over again. It was as dominating a win as I can remember in my entire NFL fandom.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I don't know. That one, it was a lot of fun in the immediate moments of watching the game, but in the immediate aftermath, it didn't last long, I feel like, because immediately after it was like, well, hold on here. They clearly don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo.
That's what it turned into, because that was the only real talking point from the game, because it was like,
Right.
What else were you going to say? The Niners destroyed them. Raheem Mostert, 29 carries, 220 yards in the game, 4 touchdowns. He ran for 7.6 yards per carry. Jimmy Garoppolo threw only 8 passes, completed only 6 passes for 77 yards. And the Niners scored 37 points and won the game by 3 scores.
Yeah, boiler up, Raheem Mostert.
Oh, God. I think it was like this. Was it the second most yards anybody's ever run for in a playoff game? It was something like that. It was it was unbelievable. And you could tell right from jump, because I believe was it the first possession? It was like 3rd and 10, and the Niners ran a draw to Mostert. And he ran it like 36 yards for a touchdown. And I was like, uh-oh, Kyle's in his bag today. And man, were we right.
Yeah, I mean, I keep leaning towards that Seahawks game because that's the one that, like, when you think of a core, like, memory of Niners fandom, you have a singular play. And it kind of takes a singular play to truly drive it home. You know, like, I have core memories of being a Niners fan. You know, the catch two was, you know, in my starting to truly watch the Niners era. The overtime run by Garrison Hurst. It's why he's right there with Frank Gore for my favorite 49er running back of all time, because that one play, I remember watching it in the back room of my grandparents where the secondary TV was and going crazy during that play. Like, it's like plays give you that, like, singular moment of memory of, like, the high of highs. And that's the only one of these that has a singular play that sticks out.
You don't have the Debo play against the Eagles in 23 where he catches the pass over the middle, bounces off the defender, and turns on the pocket.
Second place on this one is the Saints 2019 where Kittle said F you to 4 defenders.
That was pretty good. I watched that game. My wife has a huge family. So we have to split holidays. So, like, we'll go to my family and for one, and then we have to go to her family for the other one. And they had to, like, rent out a hall because her family is so big. We can't fit at somebody's house. And so we were in this hall, and I'm literally watching the game on my phone. The family's off, like, exchanging gifts and doing that. And I'm just sitting at the table on my phone, and people realized what I had on my phone. And all her male cousins are, like, crowding around me, all huddling over watching my phone as George Kittle catches that 4th down pass and just gallops down the field like a drunken rhinoceros, carrying the 49ers to victory.
You know what's really weird about all this?
What?
There is only one of these games that we did not know each other yet, and we're not doing a podcast during.
Well, that would have to be... Was it Jimmy's first start?
Yeah, because we started doing a podcast in 2019.
Yeah, jeez.
So, like, all these other games, we were likely texting each other during.
Probably, yeah. That's crazy. It's also crazy that there's 2 games from 2025 on here. the Eagles playoff game with the trick pass from Jawan to McCaffrey. And I think the Mac Jones game against the Rams this year is an all-timer. Like, nobody
that one's at the bottom to me. But I couldn't, like, when you sent me this, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't go through the schedules to see, is there something I missed? But like, I was like, oh, that one doesn't fit. And then I was like, well, what one would I replace it with? And they're like, there's none that spring to mind.
Just because there was no Brock Purdy, there was no Brandon Aiyuk, there's no Ricky Pearson.
There were so many games this year that it was like, the Niners they got no shot in this game, and then they won it.
Not only did they win it, they came out of the gate and put it on the Rams. They jumped out to a 14-0 lead. They went right down the field on the first two possessions and stuck it in the end zone like the Rams defense wasn't even there. I thought they had no shot to win that game. And then when you zoom out and look at how good the Rams ended up being this season, for the 49ers to win that game is unbelievable. To me, it had to make the list, especially with the way it ended with the Alfred Collins, where he punches Kyron Williams so hard, you can hear it. If you watch the play, you can hear when he punches him and he hits him in the face and he fumbles at the 1 yard line. It was an all-time game. And if Al Michaels wasn't on the call, people would think it was. But because he butchered every call in the game, we don't think of it that way.
God, you talk about, all-time great players that just hang on too long. Al Michaels was in my top 3 all-time play-by-play guys. It was Pat Summerall, Brent Musburger, and Al Michaels were my top 3. His last 10 years, it's like, good God, you've destroyed the memory. Like, when I hear Al Michaels now, I'm not going to have a singular thought of, that guy called more big moments in sports than anybody else has ever done in history. Because that's the truth. Al Michaels has called more big moments in sports than anybody else in history. I'm going to have that thought immediately accompanied by, God, I freaking hated listening to that guy for the last decade of his career.
I acknowledge that he is a legend in the business. He's never been one of my favorites, and these last years have not been kind to Al Michaels. I will just put it that way. Brisbee Life on Twitch. Shout out to the Twitch fam, says the punt block in Green Bay was memorable. Absolutely, it was memorable. They didn't score an offensive touchdown, and they went into Green Bay and beat Aaron Rodgers in Lambeau in the snow. It was an unbelievable game. They did everything they could offensively to lose that game, and the defense and the special teams said, hell no, we're going on after this. Robbie Gould kicks the field goal to walk off, and Jimmy G does the F the Packers. Awesome.
Now, if we were to reverse this, what's the most memorable games that you wish you could forget?
Well, that's easy. It's the 2 Super Bowls. I mean,
there's another one that it's the one that jumps into my mind first.
How could it not be the 2 Super Bowls?
It's Jaquiski Tart dropping that motherfucking interception. That is the moment to me. That play sums up this era. So close, and they let it slip through their fingers. Like, no, it's not the Super Bowl play. But this era right now this is the uncrowned champion era. That is the way this Kyle Shanahan era will be defined unless he gets a Super Bowl. They were a champion caliber team for almost a decade and never won one. And that play is the perfect summary of it in a singular moment.
That was obviously frustrating. Clearly, no doubt about it. But there was a decent amount of time left at that point. But to me, as damaging as that was, the 2 Super Bowl, especially like 2023, it was such a close game. They got beat in the end. Bummer. And the Shanahan coin toss.
That one, my anger, when I think of that game, I don't get angry about losing. I get angry at the freaking refs cheating them out of the game.
In 2023?
Yes. And I know 2020, the 2019 season, I also arrive at the refs, but it's not immediate. Because it's the Bosa hold on the long pass that allowed them to go down and change the game. Yes. Like, Bosa got It's the worst reffing ever when it comes to a singular player being held. He was literally headlocked every single play, and they never called it. But that 2023 game, just the moment I think of that game, I'm immediately enraged at the refs again. Because it, to me, and I made the argument then, and I still think it today, those refs had a bias.
I'm not willing to say that, but when I think of 2023, the Chiefs just executed at the end, and the Niners didn't, and they won. Now, the Shanahan coin toss decision is an all-time bonehead move, in my opinion. 2019, they were up 10 with 5 minutes to go in the game. Like, you can't lose that game. If they had just gained one first down, they probably win it. To lose that one, that to me is worse than 2023. I've always said that. People are like, oh, the Niners choked in 2023. I don't look at 2023 as a choke job. 2019 was an utter choke, an all-time choke. You're up 10 with 5 minutes to go, and they lost the game by double digits.
Yeah, I mean, let's just call it what it is. If the holding, that singular rule, was ref fairly for both sides, the Niners win both Super Bowls.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, yes, do I think Bosa was held on that play? I do. But also, that play didn't result in any points. They still had to give up.
No, but that was the back-breaking play.
But why is that a back-breaking play when there was so much of the game left to go?
That's when the Chiefs went, hey, we could play backyard football and win this. That's when the Chiefs started to believe, hey, we're going to win this game. They don't get that. It's over.
Yes, I agree with that. I don't think the Chiefs come back and win without that play. But also, like, how about you get your stuff together off?
Right. They had chances to still win the game.
Yes.
But that is the play that broke the Niners. That is the play where the Chiefs actually started to believe we are going to win this game even though we're down 10. And if the hold is called, the game is all but guaranteed to be over. Because what would it have been, like 3rd and 27 or something? Wasn't it 3rd and 17? Yeah, it would have been insane. And if they don't get it, the Niners are getting the ball with under 5 minutes, and they're already up 10. Like, they're going to get it down to at least, 2-3 minutes left in the game. Like, it would have been game over. So, like, that singular play changed everything. And that's not always true, but that's the frustrating part of this era, is it is true that there's like a handful of plays that changed everything. Tart dropping the ball changed everything. You have that hold changing everything. In the other one, you have the fact that the refs wouldn't call a hold on the Chiefs, but then immediately called one on the 49ers first chance they got. And that is the fact that it happened in overtime. That's why I fall in line with, nah, F you had a bias here. Because you waited until you could decide the game, and you clearly decided it.
I think that the call that you're forgetting in 2019 was the offensive pass interference on George Kittle at the end of the first half. It's a 42-yard completion. It's the best throw Jimmy Garoppolo ever makes as a 49er, is that throw in that spot. And it is a 42-yard gain that would have put them at the Kansas City 13-yard line with 6 seconds to go. So maybe they take one shot at the end zone. They kick a field goal there that would have put them up 13-10 at that point in the game. Now, Kansas City could have still won after that, but not just getting the air taken out of your sails at that point. You know, you talk about the 3rd and 17 play turning things for the Chiefs. Maybe that play would have turned it for the 49ers, and that got called back too. It has just been the pain. To quote one of my all-time favorites.
I'm saying you could have a whole bracket on what play makes you angrier.
Well,
you know what I mean? What's the play that makes you the most angry of the Shanahan era?
I wanted positivity and happiness. I know that's a different thing for you, but why shouldn't we try to be happy in the offseason?
I'm not saying that you should have done that. I'm saying, like, we could have a whole bracket on that, and that bracket might actually get get people's blood boiling and arguing even more.
Oh, I'm sure it would. 100%. But I'm trying to live in the successes that they have had. Look, next year we could do the failure. If you wanted, we're going to have a bracket next year. So we could do the failures next year just to make you happy. But we'll have the voting. That voting will start tomorrow. I'll tweet out the links. We'll make sure all the links get out there. But you wanted to switch it up this year, leave a comment. Do you like the new idea? Do you hate the new idea? We can always change it and go back. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you think. Obviously, we are always open to feedback here on the show. That's going to do it for this edition of the Gold Standard Podcast. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you are not watching live, swipe left and hype the video. Don't like it, hype it. That's like a turbocharged like. It really, really helps us. It sends us out. The algorithm loves when you hype the video. It puts us out to more people. Please, if you could do that, it costs you nothing. It makes a big, big difference for us.
Yeah, to the millennials out there, the Gen Xers, act like a Gen Zer or a Gen Alpha and hype it.
I don't even know what some of the things in that sentence are, but sure. Listen to 11. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody. We'll talk next week.